Hi, my name is Greg Cole, owner and founder of CIC Creative. Today I'm going to demonstrate for you how to use the Tracker Import Wizard. The Tracker Import Wizard can be used to import contacts into the Tracker database. It's available on the ININ marketplace. You'll use CSV files as your source data that have to be pre-generated from your own database or wherever your contacts come from. First thing we need to do is to connect to an IC server. So I will do that. And while that's connecting, just keep in mind that whatever username you use here, make sure that they're not logged in with some other client application, such as the .NET Client or Interaction Desktop, because you will not be able to be logged in with this user and still access the Tracker license, which is required, by the way. So this user needs to have the i3 Access Tracker as well as the Tracker Import Wizard Marketplace license. So you can see that I've connected to my server. So the next thing I'm going to do is click Next and go to the Choose Import Data File screen. So I have some pre-generated CSV files of multiple lengths. I will select one with 100 contacts, and when I click the Load button, you can see that it loads contact in this grid will be populated with all of the contacts in that file, and you can see all the various columns that are in that file. Different, home address, home state, business phone, first name, last name, and all of these things. You can even include attributes. So if you create a tracker attribute called maybe customer ID or service plan, I will show you how you can map those from your source data and store those in tracker attributes. So this might have come from some your external system. This might be the customer ID for that customer, and you've created a place in Tracker to store that with your contacts when you do your import. So now I've got the my source file loaded on the next screen. This one basically right now the only thing you can import, as I said in the beginning, are Tracker contacts. So we'll just click Next on this screen. The next screen is the options page. So do we want to check for duplicates? Yes, we do, because we do not want to have duplicate tracker or duplicate contacts in there. If you've imported a contact one time, you don't need to import them again. That would create a duplicate. So we'll select yes. And the duplicate check options, do we want to consider name? Not for this run, because if you consider name, let's say you have a bunch of John Smiths and they might be different John Smiths, so you don't want to consider the name in that one. We're going to use something else to determine what to check for the duplicate. So how should duplicates be handled? We'll say do not import, so basically just leave them. But you can also, there is an update feature, so if you have a duplicate and it's detected as a duplicate and some data has changed about it, like maybe the home address has changed or business phone number has changed, then you can update that. Select the interaction address type and subtype to be used for the duplication check. So we'll just leave the defaults there. Business phone, you could choose business 2 phone, home phone, or you could choose business mobile or whatever. We're going to just use the business phone, but then the important thing here is the source interaction address column. So we're going to use business phone in the Tracker database, and in the CSV file we're going to use whatever column we choose here, and I have a column called business phone, and so I'm going to use that. So it will basically be checking for every contact the business phone for that contact against a business phone in Tracker to see if that contact already exists. Okay. So on the next screen, just some other defaults: interaction address subtype, type, default address type. So these are things that when interaction addresses and addresses are created within Tracker, they all need types, or in the case of an interaction address, it needs a subtype. So you would select these based on how you use the Tracker system at your location. I'm going to leave the defaults. So what's happening now? If you saw that flash across the screen, it said, please wait, performing auto mapping. So what the Tracker Import Wizard tries to do is it looks at the names of the columns, and on the left, these are your source columns, and on the right are all the available places that you can map a field to in Tracker. So it'll basically look at the names of your column headers, first name, last name, and it will match that with a Tracker attribute or a Tracker piece of data. So I will click on this drop down to show you what that means. So in this source file we have a first name column, and in Tracker it automatically mapped it to contact information, first name. And you can see that is already grayed out. That means you can't use that. So you can't map multiple source columns to a single first name column. Now some of these attributes will allow multiple mappings, but the first name is one that doesn't, because that's really how you want it to behave. You don't want multiple columns from your source column to be going to the first name column. It would just overwrite it. So we have the first name automatically mapped. You can also see we have the last name automatically mapped. And then the business phone shows up as kind of a special column, and you can't change it. Here, you can't change the mapping because we decided that the business phone was going to be the duplicate check column. And we mapped that to the business phone in Tracker. And that shows up under interaction addresses. So if you look here, business phone, and that is grayed out as well, because we don't want to change it from here. So this is how you would map. Like for instance, we have business email. We want that to go to the business email column. Well, let's say for some reason we want that to go to the home email. Then we would select home and email. Sorry if that's a little bit off the screen. So I change that to home email. I will go ahead and change it back. It's just really as an example. Business email. And notice this one here, attribute customer ID and attribute service plan in my source column. They are not mapped to anything because the wizard couldn't make sense of what you would be trying to map it to. So we have I have pre-created a couple attributes, and for this one, the customer ID, I am going to actually do something else. For the customer ID, I want to store that in the external ID location. It goes right with, and that will end up in the individual table in the external ID column. Now for service plan, I don't have an attribute called service plan, so what I'm going to do is just put it in the remarks, which just accepts basically text. So if it's green, it's mapped. If it's gray, it means you can't change it because it's the duplicate check column, and then anything that's red is unmapped. And let's say that you decide you don't like the mapping, you can remove it and then just go remap it again. So we've got all the columns mapped. So this is basically telling us, it's telling the import wizard that for this column in your source file, you want to map to a Tracker contact or the Tracker individual table first name column. And so when it creates that new individual, that new record in the individual table, the first name will be selected from the column in the source data that says first name, and so on with all these. So what I'm going to do, just pause here briefly and talk about the import process. So what it will do is once you have all the mapping set and I hit the next button, it will do what we call a phone number interaction address normalization. So if the phone numbers come in a non-normalized format, like let's say they come in as just 3 digits dash, 3 digits dash, 4 digits, or open and close parentheses in there. What the wizard does is it actually uses the dial plan information and will take the phone number, apply it to the dial plan, and then it'll come back with like the +1 317 872 3000 type format. And the reason it does that is so that the phone numbers are stored in the correct format for Tracker to process during reverse white pages lookup and things like that. So that will be the first thing that it does, and then it will go through and do a duplication check, and we'll see that on the screen. It'll check every contact to see if it already exists based on the criteria we set, which is essentially just the phone number, the business phone number. And then once it does that and completes that, it will begin creating the contact records, and then it'll create the contact or the Tracker individual, and then it'll create the interaction addresses, and then the addresses, and add the attributes. And you'll see it on the screen. It logs everything it's doing, and there is a log file with which you can verify. You can save the log file after the fact so that you can actually see what was done, and you can store that and see if there were any errors or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. You can see that it was it's doing the duplicate check. Well, actually, it already did the normalization. So now it's adding all the contacts, and as you can see, and there's only 100 contacts here, so it really doesn't take very long, but you can see there's 2 progress bars, one that's basically for each contact, and one is the overall progress. And it also gives you kind of a running time, elapsed time, so that you can see how long it's taken, and tries to do an estimate of how much time is left. You can pause it if you need to, and also if the server goes down or the server connection goes down, it will pause automatically. And we're just about there at 100. And then it says it completed successfully and added 100 new tracker contacts. And I will click on the view log file just so we can see what the log file looks like. It basically tells you normalizing 200 phone numbers. See, that went by the screen so fast we didn't even really see it. It breaks it up into chunk sizes of 500, and there were only 200 phone numbers in there. That log file, or that import file, happened to have 2 phone numbers for each contact, and there were 100 contacts, so there were 200 phone numbers to normalize. And so it only had to send 1 chunk, and it happened very quickly. And then it did all the duplicate checking. Then you can see it how it created all the different addresses, interaction addresses, and all that. And then at the very end, it tells you, well, that does not look correct. Certainly didn't take 11 minutes and 17 seconds. But anyway, you can see everything that happened, and it'll give you the start time and the end time. So that is the tracker import wizard. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.